Well, it wasn't too many days ago we had Easter Sunday, and like many of you, I read several times the account of the women, the followers going to the tomb and finding out Jesus was risen. And I listened to other people talk about it, and there was a lot of emphasis on what that message was and whether that was a first sermon and all those kind of things. And it struck me we kind of were missing the mark on a lot of that. Here's some things that struck me, especially out of Matthew's account, that I really want to remember about the resurrection. The first one is that the point of that whole thing is not who said it, where they went, what they did. It's the fact that what God did is amazing. He raised Jesus from the dead. We can never lose sight of that message. I like the fact that that was first announced by an angel. I heard some people talking about who was the first one to preach the Easter sermon. It was more of an announcement. I'm not sure it was a sermon like we think of one. And it was an angel that did it first. He's the one that said he is risen. But I love what those followers, what those women did. They hurried away to tell the others. We need to be in a hurry to announce that news. And I like the fact that they were afraid, but with great joy. You know, it is a little scary to realize that God has the power to raise people from the dead. That's a little intimidating when you think about following a God like that. And I think they got the implications. And of course, it wasn't a chapter later when Jesus said, now, you go into all the world and make disciples. You see, it's a little scary when you find out that you're the recipient of incredibly good news and that your job's to share that good news with people. Now, call it a sermon, call it a witness, call it a testimony, call it evangelism, call it making disciples, call it telling the good news, call it whatever you want to. But I like the fact the first thing they did was went and told other people what they had found out, but they did it with great joy. See, the best news of all of Easter I keep reflecting on is that we're going to live forever, that God has the power to raise not just Jesus from the dead, but us too. See, over the last few weeks and months, there's been a lot of people that have died. Now, we all have that experience. As a preacher, I do a lot of funerals. I spend a lot of time with families, and I'm going to be honest. I don't know what you do without the hope of the resurrection. I love the fact that I can sit in believers' living rooms and talk about that we are hope grievers. So here's what I take away from all that Easter commotion about Jesus. One is God did raise him from the dead. Two, an angel announced that, preached it, told it, whatever you want to say about it. But when the women heard it, they went and told other people immediately. Yes, they were a little afraid, and yes, they were overwhelmed with great joy. I like that. They hurried to tell other people. That's what I want to take. I don't want to get bogged down in debates about what technically is a sermon and who the first one was. Obviously an angel, then the women, then Peter. I don't want to get in those debates. What I want to do is focus on the fact that God raised Jesus from the dead. And because of that, I'm going to live forever. And I better get about the business of telling that to other people. This is Steve Ridgell telling you there is great joy in the good news that God raised Jesus from the dead.